Austere traditions are brutal. The Spartans assess every newborn child destined to guarantee it is entire. Assuming it is distorted, the child is deserted to pass on. They raise their young men in the classroom of everyday struggle and hardship. The agoge, in battle preparing, a little kid's deficiency of his weapon, procures a ridiculous lip from the hand of his own dad. At age 7, every young man is torn from his mom and makes his own specific manner in the wild to return a man. Indeed, even the king gets through this transitional experience. At age 15, youthful king-to-be Leonidas draws a wolf into a thin section so he can kill it. He gets back to be delegated king. Years after the fact, couriers visit King Leonidas mentioning Sparta's accommodation to King Xerxes. Offended by their disposition, King Leonidas kicks the couriers into a well. Recognizing the danger of Xerxes' attack force, he visits the ephors to get their approval prior to sending the Spartan armed force in fight. He proposes to repulse the mathematically unrivaled foe by utilizing the territory of the hot gates of Thermopylae, piping the Persians into a thin pass between the stones and the ocean, where their tremendous numbers will count in vain. Leonidas is hesitant to oppose the bad pastorate by and large, yet his significant other urges him to break new ground. Leonidas chooses to take 300 of his best troopers as his on a relaxed stroll to the vital hot gates area. His better half bids farewell, advising him to return, and gives him a jewelry. Out and about they meet a few partners who are stunned that the Spartans are sending a little power. Leonidas requests the callings from the associated armed force, who are experts and craftsmen. He calls attention to that he has brought a greater number of troopers than they. Joined by Arcadians and different Greeks, they show up at Thermopylae. In sight of the oncoming Persian armed force, they build a wall to contain the Persians' development. Solid tempests obliterate some of Xerxes' armada. A Persian messenger shows up and finds that the cadavers of the past exploring party presently make up a piece of the enormous stone wall. The Persian expresses that their bolts will annihilate the sun, and the Spartans concur they will basically battle in the shade. The messenger's party is killed. Before the fight, the Persians request that the Spartans drop their arms and give up. Leonidas rejects and provokes the Persians to come and take their weapons from them. With their closely knit phalanx arrangement, the Spartans channel the Persians into the limited landscape, more than once repelling them and causing weighty setbacks. Xerxes, impressed with Spartan fighting skill, personally approaches Leonidas to persuade him to surrender. He promises Leonidas wealth and power in exchange for his loyalty. Leonidas declines, promising instead to make the bleed, and turns to rejoin his army. Unnerved at the refusal, Xerxes sends his concealed individual gatekeeper, which name the Spartans additionally refute. The fights proceed, with the Spartans beating troopers and creatures drawn from the huge scopes of the Persian domain, from Mongolian savages and Eastern physicists to African rhinoceroses and Indian conflict elephants. Notwithstanding, a portion of the bold Spartan fighters are killed, and obviously more will follow. Ephialtes goes to Xerxes and consents to show the goat way to the Persians in return for a uniform, alongside commitments of ladies and riches. Xerxes will concede Ephialtes his desire, assuming he will bow before the god lord. Back in Sparta, Queen Gorgo has been attempting to persuade the chamber to send help to Leonidas. A cordial councilman sets up for her to talk, yet makes sense of that she will require Theron on her side. Theron consents to help her, assuming she will lay down with him, so she does. At the hot gates, the Spartans learn they have been deceived and realize their battle is ill-fated. The Arcadians retreat, notwithstanding unavoidable demise. The Spartans will not follow. Leonidas arranges a hesitant Dilios to get back to Sparta and recount their unavoidable passings. In Sparta, Queen Gorgo makes her a lure for the committee. Rather than supporting her as guaranteed, Theron double-crosses her, blaming her for infidelity. Maddened, Gorgo grabs a sword and cuts Theron, bursting a pack of gold secret in his robe. As the coins stepped with Persian markings spill onto the ground, the council understands Theron's foul play and consent to join against Persia. At the Hot Gates, as the Persians surround the Spartans, who have created a dome out of their shields, Leonidas stands along in front of the dome. Xerxes' general demands their surrender, declaring that Leonidas may keep his title as king of Sparta and become warlord of all Greece, answerable only to Xerxes. Ephialtes urges this as well, to which Leonidas remarks, "May you live forever," an insult from a culture valuing death and valor in battle. Leonidas drops his shield and removes his helmet, seemingly bowing in submission. Stelios then bursts out of the dome and leaps over his king and kills the general. A furious Xerxes orders his troops to attack. As Persian archers shoot the remaining Spartans, Leonidas rises and hurls his spear at Xerxes, ripping open his cheek, thus making the god king bleed. Leonidas himself marks his final moments by telling his wife aloud that he loves her. A rain of arrows falls upon him, and the screen goes black. Back in Sparta, Dilios gives the necklace to Queen Gorgo and tells her of her husband's fate. Finishing up his story before a crowd of people of mindful Spartans, Dilios pronounces that the 120,000 in number Persian armed force that barely crushed 300 Spartans currently faces 10,000 Spartans directing 30,000 Greeks. Lauding Leonidas' penance, Dilios drives the gathered Greek armed force into a wild charge against a Persian armed force, lighting the Battle of Plataea.